Welcome to Reform Thinking. We're very glad you're here with us today.
It's good to be here.
We have a subject on the table that I think touches every single person listening. It doesn't matter where you are in life because it gets at the most basic human pursuit. Everyone wants to be happy. It's just the human condition to look for satisfaction, for a sense of well-being that lasts. We chase it everywhere.
In careers, relationships.
All of it. Entertainment, food. But as we know, the Bible has a specific vocabulary for this. And the words that get translated into English as happy or blessed, well, they often fail to carry the weight of the original Hebrew.
You lose the texture.
You do. You lose the density of what's being communicated. So today we're going to open up our sources and look at one Hebrew word in particular, āšrê.
And this is so necessary. You're right that getting our definitions correct is it's the first step in critical thinking. Especially today, with so much information and so many vague ideas floating around. And when we look at āšrê, we're not talking about some fleeting emotion. It's not that temporary spike you get because you, found $20 in your pocket.
Yeah.
The sources we have in front of us are clear. They define this term as heightened state of happiness and joy. It suggests being highly favored.
And there's a qualifier there that's critical.
There is. What makes this totally distinct from how the world talks about happiness is that this state is specifically as by divine grace.
That distinction changes everything. It changes the entire mechanism. So today, that's our mission. We're going to unpack the grammar of this word, look at how it's used in the Psalms and the wisdom literature. And we're even going to look at some of the jarring, difficult uses of the word that might shock a modern listener. We want to get a real sense of what it means to be blessed according to Scripture.
A worthy goal.
So let's start with the word itself. Just looking at the linguistic data from the lexicon, what are we seeing?
Okay, so the first thing to notice is that we're looking at a noun. āšrê is not a verb, it's a noun.
A state of being, not an action.
Right, and it's in a specific form, a masculine plural construct form.
Yeah.
The root is likely the word asher, which has this idea of to go straight or to advance.
Okay.
But the way it's used in the text, it functions as an abstract, intensive exclamation. So the sources suggest a literal translation would be something like the blessings of. Or even, oh, the happinesses of.
Oh, the happinesses of. I really appreciate that the sources highlight that plural aspect.
It's significant.
It has to be. It suggests we're not dealing with a singular, isolated moment of feeling good. It implies a multiplicity or maybe an intensity of happiness.
I think intensity is a good word for it.
It feels comprehensive. It's not just one aspect of your life going well. It's a whole state of existence that is saturated with this favor. When the text uses the plural, it's like it's piling up the concept, showing us it's not a thin reality, but something substantial.
That's a very helpful way to see it. The plural construct certainly points in that direction.
Yeah.
And we can get a fuller picture if we look at the translation equivalents.
Oh.
When the Old Testament was translated into Greek, the Septuagint, the translators chose the word makarios to line up with āšrê. And the source data we have says makarios is used 40 times for āšrê.
And for anyone who knows their New Testament, that word makarios just rings a bell. It immediately links this Old Testament idea directly to the Beatitudes.
It does. Our source text mentions the Beatitudes as a related topic. So we're seeing the groundwork for that later teaching right here in the Old Testament.
But let's go back to that lexicon definition for a second. It says, this state is about being highly favored or fortunate, and then specifically, as by divine grace. That phrase, divine grace, changes the whole game.
It has to. It separates āšrê from just plain luck.
Right. Luck is random.
Luck is chance. āšrê is the result of a specific relationship, a specific standing before God. It's not something you just, stumble upon by accident. It's something that characterizes a person who is the recipient of God's favor.
So it's an objective reality first.
Yes. The lexicon explicitly says it implies very favorable circumstance and enjoyment. So you have this objective reality being favored by God, which then results in this subjective experience of heightened joy.
An objective standing that produces a subjective experience. I like that. And I think that objective reality is probably clearest in the most famous usage of the word, which is Psalm 1, verse 1. Blessed is the man who does not walk in the advice of the wicked. This is the entryway to the entire book of Psalms. It's like the gatekeeper for everything that follows in the Psalter.
It absolutely is. It sets the trajectory for the whole book. Yeah. And when we apply the grammar we just talked about, that construct form, we could read Psalm 1.1 as the blessings of the man, or, oh, the happiness of the man.
It establishes a category of humanity.
It does. The blessed man is defined, and it's interesting, he's defined first by what he does not do.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't walk in the counsel of the wicked or stand in the path of sinners or sit in the seat of scoffers.
And that's fascinating, isn't it? The definition of this incredible happiness starts with a negative. It starts with separation. I think most people, especially today, see holiness or separation as restrictive. They think it kills joy. The modern idea is that to be happy, you have to say yes to everything, experience everything. But here, the text ties that separation directly to āšrē.
It suggests that saying no is actually the path to the yes of the blessing.
Yes.
The source note we have links this to the idea of renouncing sinners. The implication is that you cannot have this specific kind of happiness, this heightened state, if you are walking in lockstep with those who are opposed to God.
So the happiness is found in the separation.
It's a protective boundary. If you remove yourself from the path that leads to destruction, you are placing yourself in the sphere of blessing. The separation isn't a punishment. It's a preservation.
So this is not some miserable, grim holiness. It's a joyful one. The definition itself includes enjoyment. The man described here is the recipient of favorable circumstances from God because he is distinct from the world around him. He isn't listening to the wrong voices.
Correct.
But this does raise a question for me, a question about, well, perfection. In Psalm 1, this man looks flawless. He avoids all the wrong paths. But does āšrē only apply to people who never mess up? Because if that's the case, the list of people who are āšrē is going to be 0.
A very fair question. And that's why we have to look at the broader usage of the word across Scripture. If all we had was Psalm 1, we might think this blessedness is reserved for someone who has never sinned.
Right, an impossible standard.
But the sources we're looking at take us to Psalm 32, verses 1 and 2. And here, we see āšrē used in a very different context.
Okay. Well,
āšrē is the one whose transgression is forgiven, whose sin is covered.
whoa, that is a massive shift.
Isn't it?
In Psalm 1, the blessed man avoids the path of sinners. In Psalm 32, the blessed man is a sinner, but something has happened to his sin.
Exactly. This opens the door for actual human beings to enter this state.
This is where, for me, the Reformed understanding of grace just makes the text shine.
It illuminates it completely. Psalm 32 goes on to say, "Blessed is the man to whom the Lord does not impute iniquity."
Does not impute iniquity.
The man has iniquity, but the Lord doesn't count it against him. This is where that definition of āšrē as highly favored by divine grace makes perfect sense. The happiness isn't achieved by his perfect performance. It's received because his transgression is forgiven and his sin is covered.
And that phrase, sin is covered, is so significant. The state of blessedness includes the removal of guilt. It means a person can be in this heightened happiness, not because they are morally perfect in their own conduct every moment, no, but because they have been the recipient of a covering. It's imputed righteousness. It's a legal standing that changes their entire condition before God.
And it's really the only way a human being could remain in a state of āšrē. If it depended on our ability to perfectly avoid the counsel of the wicked every single second of every day,
We'd lose it constantly.
we'd be in and out of favor 50 times a day. But because it's rooted in forgiveness, in the covering of sin, it's stable. It's a standing given by God.
Okay, so we have the perfect man of Psalm 1, who is an ideal, and we have the forgiven man of Psalm 32, which is our reality. But there's another usage in the source material that seems, well, counterintuitive, perhaps even more so than the forgiveness part. It comes from Job 5.17.
Yes. Blessed is the man whom Eloah corrects.
Right. And this creates a real tension for the modern mind, I think. We tend to define blessing or happiness as the absence of pain, the absence of trouble.
If things are going well, we think we're blessed.
Exactly. But here, the text says, "Behold, happy is the man whom God corrects." How can correction be happiness? How do we square that with the definition of favorable circumstance? Being corrected usually feels very unfavorable.
It does.
It can involve pain, or embarrassment, or a total disruption of our plans.
We have to adjust our perspective to match the divine perspective. If we go back to that core definition, it involves being highly favored.
Okay.
From God's point of view, and from the view of wisdom, being disciplined by God is a supreme favor. It proves that God is paying attention to you. It proves sonship. It proves care.
So if God ignored your error,
That would be the unfavorable circumstance.
Yeah.
Because it would mean he was leaving you on a path to destruction.
so the correction itself, even if it hurts, is the evidence of the blessing. That really challenges the modern idea that blessing always equals comfort.
It turns it on its head.
Sometimes Ashrei is found in the difficult correction of God because that correction is steering us back to the path of life. It comes back to that root word again, doesn't it, Asher? To go straight.
The discipline keeps us going straight. It's the guardrail that keeps the car on the road.
That is a consistent theme. The correction is the mechanism that keeps the person in the sphere of blessing. It prevents them from becoming the wicked of Psalm 1 who ultimately perish. So the man who is corrected by Allah should exclaim, "Oh, the happiness is." Because he's being treated as a beloved son, not an ignored stranger. The pain has a purpose.
A redemptive purpose.
Now, we also see this word showing up a lot in the wisdom literature. The sources list multiple occurrences in Proverbs. Proverbs 3.13, 8.32, 8.34, 28.14. It seems that wisdom and Ashrei are...
well, they're tightly coupled.
they're inseparable. You can't have one without the other. Proverbs 8.34 is particularly striking. Here, wisdom is personified, and she speaks, saying, "Blessed is the man who listens to me, watching daily at my gates."
Watching daily at my gates, the act of seeking wisdom creates the state of Ashrei.
Yes, it's an act of waiting. The man is watching, waiting for wisdom to appear, listening for her voice. It's a posture of anticipation. It echoes the listening in Psalm 1, but in a positive direction. Instead of listening to the wicked, you're listening to wisdom. And our sources also cite Proverbs 29.18 and 14.21, which link this happiness to keeping the law and having mercy on the poor.
Yeah, so there's an ethical component. It has to flow out into how you treat other people. It isn't just an intellectual exercise.
Right.
He who despises his neighbor sins, but happy is he who is gracious to the poor. That's Proverbs 14.21. The state of Ashrei is not solipsistic. It's not only inward-looking, it spills over. The person who is highly favored by God extends favor to the poor.
It's a cycle of grace.
It is. Receiving favor leads to showing favor.
Speaking of wisdom, there's a fascinating historical usage in our source list that I want to highlight. It's from 1 Kings 10.8 and the parallel in 2 Chronicles 9.7. This is the account of the Queen of Sheba's visit to Solomon.
Yes.
It gives us such a tangible picture of what this looks like in a real-life narrative.
It's a beautiful illustration of the concept. The Queen of Sheba sees the order, the prosperity, the wisdom of Solomon's court. She sees the food on his table, the seating of his officials, the attendance of his servants and their clothing, his cupbearers.
And his entryway to the house of the Lord.
Right. And she is just overwhelmed. And she exclaims to Solomon, "Happy are your men, happy are these your servants, who stand continually before you and hear your wisdom."
And she uses the word āšrē. āšrē are your men. What strikes me is the reason she gives. She doesn't say happy are they because they have great benefits or because they're well-fed, even though they probably were.
No, that's not the focus.
She says they are happy because they stand continually before you and hear your wisdom.
That's the key. The servants are blessed because of proximity. Proximity to the king and proximity to wisdom. Their entire environment is saturated with it. They're breathing the air of wisdom.
And if Solomon's servants were āšrē just by hearing human wisdom from a human king, well, the parallel to the believer standing before God is so strong. Our lexicon lists Psalm 84.5. Blessed are those who dwell in your house. It takes that earthly picture from Solomon's court and elevates it to the heavenly reality.
It's the greater reality, isn't it? If the Queen of Sheba, an outsider, could see the blessedness of Solomon's servants, how much more should we recognize the blessedness of those who dwell in God's presence?
That definition of being highly favored just reaches its peak there.
It does. Access to God is the ultimate favorable circumstance. It's better than wealth, better than earthly status. It is the privilege of standing in the presence of the king.
Now, we have to address the most difficult text in our source list.
Okay.
We've been talking about forgiveness and wisdom and dwelling in God's house. These are all very positive, uplifting concepts. But the word āšrē also appears in Psalm 137, verses 8 and 9. And this is a text that I think often makes people recoil.
It's a text we can't ignore if we want to be honest with the scripture. We can't pick and choose where we apply our definitions.
So what's the context here?
Psalm 137 is written from the depths of the Babylonian exile. The psalmist writes, "O daughter of Babylon, who are to be destroyed, happy is he who repays you as you have served us." And then, happy is he who takes your little ones and dashes them against the rock.
Happy is he, āšrē. The same word. The same word used for the man who meditates on God's law and for the man whose sin is forgiven.
Mm.
How? How can the word for a heightened state of happiness apply to such a violent, horrific image? It seems to clash with everything we assume about biblical ethics.
And we must exercise caution in context here. We can't sanitize the Bible to fit our modern sensibilities. This psalm reflects a deep, agonizing longing for divine justice.
So this isn't personal revenge.
No. Babylon was the oppressor. They destroyed Jerusalem. They had, in all likelihood, done these very things to Israelite children. The psalmist is crying out for the restoration of justice. He's asking for the lex talionis, the law of retribution, to be applied by a righteous God.
So the happiness, or the blessedness here, is connected to the satisfaction of justice being carried out against pure evil. It's not a sadist's delight in suffering.
I don't believe so. It's a desire to see the moral order of the universe set right. It's the relief of knowing that evil will not have the final word.
It connects back to that definition then, doesn't it? The one about favorable circumstances.
It does. For the oppressed, for the victim of genocide and brutality, the destruction of the oppressor is the favorable circumstance. It is the removal of the threat. It is the vindication of God's people. When we read, "Happy is he who repays you," it's an affirmation that God is a God of justice, and the one who executes that justice is functioning as an agent of God's righteous wrath.
It's still uncomfortable for us, maybe because we live in a time that prioritizes personal comfort over cosmic justice. But for the ancient mind, and certainly in the Reformed view, God's justice is as holy as his mercy.
They're two sides of the same coin.
The blessing is the restoration of order and the punishment of wickedness. If God never punished the wicked, there would be no ultimate Ashrei for the righteous, because evil would just run unchecked forever.
That's right. You can't have the beauty of Psalm 32, the covering of sin, without understanding that sin is heinous and deserves judgment. Psalm 137 reminds us of the severity of that judgment against those who set themselves against God and his people. The blessed man of Psalm 1 separates himself from the wicked. Psalm 137 shows us the final end of the wicked.
It's a very sobering reality, but it underscores the value of being in a right relationship with God.
It does.
Okay, that's a heavy but necessary perspective. Moving on from the individual to the collective, the sources also indicate that Ashrei is not just for a single person. It has a corporate dimension. It's something shared.
Yes. The scriptures speak of the blessed nation. Psalm 33.1 says, "Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord."
And Psalm 144.15 repeats it.
It does. Happy is the people who are in such a state. Happy is the people whose God is the Lord.
This suggests that Ashrei is a covenantal reality. It belongs to the group that is in a relationship with Yahweh. It's not just me and Jesus, it's us and God. The blessing covers the community.
It points to the fact that blessings flow through the covenant. Israel is blessed because they were God's chosen people. The church is blessed because we were grafted into that covenant people. The heightened state of happiness is a shared experience.
So when a people collectively acknowledge God as their Lord, they position themselves in that stream of divine favor.
That's the idea. It's about the collective identity of being his people. It's a good corrective for our highly individualistic age, reminding us that we are not isolated individuals, but part of a body.
There's also a future or an eschatological aspect mentioned in the sources. Daniel 12.12 is listed, "Blessed is he who waits." That turns our eyes toward the horizon.
It does. It implies a future orientation. Sometimes the Ashrei is not fully realized in the present moment. We might be in a time of waiting, a time of difficulty, but the text says, "Blessed is he who waits." The state of happiness is sometimes found in the anticipation of what God will do.
A forward-looking joy.
Yes. And Isaiah 30.1, which is also cited, says something similar. "Blessed are all those who wait for him."
That fits perfectly with the idea of watching at wisdom's gates. There's an expectancy. We're not just waiting for nothing. We're waiting for someone.
It tells us that this happiness is durable. It can exist even when our visible circumstances are not yet perfect because it's anchored in the promise of God. We wait because we know who is coming. We know the King is returning. And in that waiting, there is a blessing because our hope is not in vain.
It gives us the stamina to endure the present.
Because we are certain of the future.
This has been a really comprehensive look at this one Hebrew word. It's clear that Ashrei is so much more than a feeling. It's a plural, intense exclamation of the favored state of those who belong to God. It has layers and depth we often miss in the English.
It's true. It covers the blameless man in Psalm 1, the forgiven sinner in Psalm 32,
The disciplined son in Job 5,
the wisdom seeker in Proverbs, and even, as we saw, the one longing for justice in Psalm 137. It's a robust, multifaceted concept that defines the reality of the believer. It's the state of being held fast by God's grace.
It really forces us to redefine what we're chasing in life. If we're just chasing a temporary emotion, we're going to be disappointed.
Constantly.
But if we're seeking to be blessed in this biblical sense, we're seeking a standing in grace. We're seeking to be the people whose God is the Lord.
And that leads to a final thought, I think. It's on Psalm 84.5, which we touched on earlier, but maybe deserves a closer look as we close.
What does it say?
Blessed are those whose strength is in you.
Whose strength is in you. That is a powerful place to land. It shifts the center of gravity completely away from ourselves.
It does. And it poses a question, I think, for every one of us listening. Are you chasing the feeling of happiness, trying to manufacture it with your own strength, your own resources? Or are you situated in the Ashrei of divine grace, where your strength is not found in yourself, but in God himself? The first one, the feeling, it fluctuates with every passing wind. The other is a declaration of who you are in God. It's a fixed point. And that is where true rest is found.
That's the question to carry with you. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the word Ashrei. We hope this helps you read your Bible with new eyes. Thank you for listening to Reformed Thinking.